Battle started.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Pillars of Doom for an FFA between AllReasonNoLogic, Bruticus as Cortex, TANKTOM as Cortex, and Twig as Armada. This should be an exciting game as three of the most experienced AllReasonNoLogic players face off in a free-for-all. Currently, the players are set up to not be able to see each other's names in-game. They will just appear as red enemies, so there shouldn't be any sniping Twig as we all like to do. Though, fingers crossed, based on playstyles, everyone will work it out anyway. Would love to see Twig lose one of these one day. Starting off with bots, Bruticus is going to try to take advantage of their higher speed going up and down ramps and the faster expansion speed. Most of the metal is in contested zones, as is the geos, so metal expansion is going to be key to victory here. Twig with the same idea going bots, and TANKTOM also going bots, so we're going to have a bot fiesta in the middle. The water around the high ground is reasonably inaccessible without air, so I don't think we're going to see that come into play. With a wind risk of 11, I would definitely say the safety solar is a good idea, but mostly wind will be the production of choice, potentially a Lazarus or a grave robber coming out to steal some of the trees. TANKTOM opening up with a builder, Bruticus with a grunt, and Twig with a construction bot. Let us see how they go. Early defenses in Twig's base, a good call, but I would put them closer to the ramp so they can actually shoot the entire way down, as compared to here where they will cut off partway down the ramp just due to the angle that it is firing on. No expansion yet for any of the players, but we do see a grave robber coming out from Bruticus in order to get that juicy energy. Twig is starting up with some ticks, and because he doesn't have an air lab, which he is known for, they may not know who he is from the get-go. Those ticks great on this map with 3 ramp entrances into each base, and the general openness of all of the mexes. These should be able to get a lot of damage done. We see an LLT on one side from TANKTOM, but not the other, and Bruticus with none at all, so getting them into the base could be devastating. Going around the back, it looks like Twig is sending them past the LLT. With that many ticks, provided there is enough energy, those should still make their way through, but the comm is going to be in the way as well for extra stopping power, and a grunt going to intercept some of these. We will see whether it's actually able to kill any. It does, but TANKTOM now knows that the ticks are coming up there. Good idea from Twig circling around the back, potentially going to be able to get in the other side before any defense is up, but instead he's going the long way to Bruticus's base. Couple of grunts getting ready to form up and stop them if the ticks do turn around, but it doesn't look like that will be the case. Looks like they'll be running into Bruticus's first LLT. Still no expansion from any player beyond their own reach, so no one is going for that early metal. Pawn moving across from TANKTOM, going to try. Already got scouting information on Twig, so I don't want to see this one go up the ramp. That would just be a loss. Ticks hanging out and heading up. Will they be able? Nope, they've seen the LLT and they have decided to bypass it and look for the other entrance. Pity they didn't look for the entrance up here. They may have been able to get some damage done. Now they will, seeing based on the radar up there, Bruticus should now know where those are and is coming in to take them on. Ticks very fast, though, able to escape the grunts. Bruticus pushing into the middle of the map. TANKTOM out with a grave robber collecting that energy as well, and Twig certainly has been turtling up, but now with a large number of Pawns heading out. I heard feedback from the community that I have been using pawns and grunts interchangeably. I will do my best to fix that and use their proper names. Now let's check out just how much damage these pawns will do. One LLT will definitely not be enough to get them up, but Bruticus is known for his absolute mastery of the D-gun. So it will be hard to see too much damage being done even with that many pawns. Twig still trying to get something done with his ticks, but so far there doesn't look to be anywhere they can go up the ramp. Speaking of going up a ramp, perfect timing for Twig. No energy in those LLTs, and now he has spread out, dealing a lot of damage to Bruticus. Unfortunately, he is running them into the LLT and the army, gathering them close onto the build power. Unfortunately, no damage is going to be done there. Bad micro by Twig, should have gone for the wind. He did get the lab. That is crazy. I would not have expected him to get the lab there. I thought it was bad micro, but in fact, perfectly calculated. Bruticus needs to get that rezzed ASAP. And it looks like he will be somewhat out of the fight for the time being, despite him having one of the larger armies at this time. In the top right, you may notice that there is not as much of a graphic showing you which team is in the lead. That only works in 1v1s, not free-for-alls for the time being. So here you can only see their metal totals, their metal income totals. So with any luck, those will be updated sometime soon. Twig, having crippled Bruticus, is now heading over to try and do the same to TANKTOM. There is a reason why we all view him as the final boss. Good engagement by Twig, absolutely crippling TANKTOM's army, and that is not going to be a completed Dragon's Maw 1%, and that would have done a huge amount of damage to these pawns, but no luck for TANKTOM. Bruticus getting ready for what looks to be a potential attack towards Twig, and Twig looking like he's getting ready for the defense of his base while he goes and tries to take on Tom. Lots of LLTs going up, all players knowing that there is a threat roaming out on the map and not a lot they can do. Bruticus coming back online despite the damage because of those res bots. Not too much was done overall. So Bruticus is right back in the game. Twig unable to capitalize on his early damage. If he goes for this attack, he might end up pincered by TANKTOM, and Bruticus not a good move. Too few units to push up this front wrap, and Twig knows that he is pulling back out and looking for another avenue of attack. If he were to group up his units, he may have a much better chance. TANKTOM getting out there and building all of his mexes. First player to really expand Bruticus with one on the low ground, and that's about it. Going for the Geo if TANKTOM can scale while Twig is distracted by Bruticus, or while he's distracted by the poultry army on the front line. That would be a very good thing. Twig seen this army and is reacting, pushing the pawns in. Very good micro. Going to be able to take out the aggravators and the thugs, as pawns are much faster than both of these units. And that is a good cleanup by Twig. Twig with a couple of defensive Dragon Claws popping up here. The game is certainly running in his favor, at least until he falls behind in metal, and so he is securing his base and getting ready to push out, reclaiming TANKTOM's dead army with his comm. Good call, considering that metal is low across the map, across all the players on the map. Bruticus pushing out, about to push into Twig's larger force. Radar coverage shows Twig's force, so I would like to see Bruticus pulling out of that. TANKTOM coming on in. It looks like we may very well have a three-way battle in the middle of the map very soon. All of the metal secured by Twig that will be converted into units. Twig still hasn't pushed off of pawns. Would love to see some aggravators and potentially a Centurion out of him. The Centurion very good in battles like this. Very good damage against bots, but quite slow, and Twig has been putting up a fast pace battle. TANKTOM definitely pulling ahead now with the increased metal and soon increased energy of a Geo. Unfortunately, no expansion on the other side. This area has been relatively uncontested, so it would have been decently safe. TANKTOM getting ready to push in. Thugs versus pawns. That is a lot of thugs and a lot of damage that could be rained down on those pawns while they're engaged. I still think the pawns would win, but they would take too much damage doing so. Tom pulling all the way back and holding his entrance, considering that his comm is out in the middle of the map and prime for sniping. I don't love that call. But with the couple of LLTs and that high ground radar, TANKTOM is well aware of everything that Twig is doing. Bruticus is going for a T2 transition, considering he is being unharassed by both players. I kind of like this. We'll see whether it pays off. Twig's pawns now more of a detriment than a use. Trying to fight that many thugs is not going to go very well for him. He needs to transition into something else, and his spending on those lightning claws could have been used for something more useful, like units at the moment. Small attack coming in by Twig, taking out one LLT, but losing several pawns for it, not overly worthwhile, especially considering TANKTOM is getting the reclaim. That is a large metal donation, and when all players are so metal starved, that can be a problem. Twig moving out right as Bruticus and TANKTOM are starting to move in, but no damage done as of yet. Twig has seen the comm and is going for a comm snipe, spreading his units out. Will Twig be able to take TANKTOM's comm? He should be able to with this many units. It will come down to D-guns. That is a large volume of units being taken out, but that is TANKTOM's comm down and TANKTOM out of the fight. Twig is now out of an army, though, which brings him almost on par with Bruticus, who has been going for that T2, so very few units will be coming out of him. Twig has a very small window to win this battle now. He has to get the reclaim, he has to convert that into units, and he has to push Bruticus before he gets those T2 defenses down. I'm going to pull TANKTOM into this cast, and I'm going to grab his thoughts. Wow, this game slows down for a moment as both players collect and get ready for the next stages. Tom, you got your comm sniped.
Yep. I left that way too far forward.
And you had the radar on the high ground too. You could see it all, and you reacted too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that because I had the twin towers up there, I could fall back, but not fast enough, as it turns out.
Yep. So between Twig and Bruticus, with Bruticus being on T2, because you can see the rest of the map now that you have lost, who do you think has the advantage here?
I feel like saying Brute should have it with the T2, but Twig's got the map control.
Yep.
I was getting concerned that there was going to be air come flooding out.
I
We
think
more
that
of an
if
economy than I was expecting for how many units he'd also pushed out.
he's also only been pushing out pawns, so
True.
lots of units for very little money. I think that if this game goes more than about 5 minutes, then it's definitely going to be Bruticus favored, but as it stands, unless Twig does a T2 transition, then it is definitely going to be... It currently is Twig favored. His mobility and his probing attacks, well, and Bruticus's inability to build many units quickly at the moment due to low income will definitely favor Twig, but that window is closing.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him start pushing out some. Although I'm saying that he can't really start pushing out his Sheldons because they'll
Well,
just get overrun at this stage.
Twig currently has 800 metal in the bank, and his lab is worth another 600. I would actually like to see him T2 transition right now.
And he's eaten my comm as well.
Yeah, well, I would have preferred to see him use your comm metal for a T2 transition than this mass pawns. Right now, if he doesn't win the game soon, these pawns are going to become more liability than use, and he is just pumping metal into them.
Interesting that there's no fiends coming out of Bruticus when he knows that it's basically just pawns that he's into, or that's all he's seen so far.
Yeah, Bruticus is a PvE player mostly, and so the Deceiver and Augur with a Sheldon backup is the play of the day almost always. Though that long range, and Twig instantly reacts to it, and he now knows that T2 is on the field, and he knows what he's up against.
And he's
So,
already got Centurions on their way.
yep, the thing which is problematic about this army is how slow it will move around, provided that
Good
Twig
to see
doesn't get his
Brute
comm
moving
sniped.
down. It'd be great to see him come sort of up that ramp,
Yes, but if
which it
that
looks like he's
happens,
moving to.
the DPS of the pawns will absolutely cripple the Bruticus's comm.
Yeah.
So Twig could 100% get the comm snipe here, and I hope he
Just as
does
we were
go
saying
for it.
that, some fiends have made their way out of the
He's
base of
left it
Bruticus.
now that the fiends are on the field. He's almost left it too late. It will still take more fiends than that to stop all of Twig's army, but if we don't see an attack into Bruticus's base soon, we are not going to see a successful attack at all.
And this is where that decision making comes in. You can see as soon as Twig saw that Bruticus had a force down there, he's already reacting and sending a bunch of pawns over.
Yep.
Whereas if they'd run, they probably would have been at about the top of the ramp before the pawns could have made it across.
Yep. Unfortunately, running the pawns into this is not going to result in a Twig victory. That high ground and the slow movement up the ramp for those pawns meant that the Grunts had the advantage in that engagement. The one Centurion, though, very, very strong in this situation. What Twig needs to do is get into Bruticus's base for any chance of winning, or surround the army. One of the areas that Twig did not do in that attack was surround the army. If he'd had a force waiting from behind to pincer them, that would have been a huge amount of resources lost for Bruticus. And considering
and
that
it's worth
he's
noting the surround doesn't need to be much. A
no,
tick on the other side will give you the full surround bonus.
yeah, and considering that Bruticus is only on 3 mexes and can barely power them, the amount of T2 that he can get up is very, very limited. So I want to see Twig either surround the army and kill it off, or run the ramp and run the gauntlet and try for it. Though the expansion he's doing around the map is great. He's even with the T2 mexes, he is absolutely beating Bruticus in eco. These Centurions showing their worth, actually pushing that T2 force back. So very, very, very smart decision making, but Twig needs to get up there and do damage, or transition to T2, which he has, going for snipers out of the gate. With how small his energy income is, I'm not loving that, and the switch to hounds is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, because hounds will be able to, with that pawn force that he's got, to basically run as point for him. He should be able to push in and then have the hounds there to deal the damage once he's basically within that force that he's attacking.
Yep. On the low ground behind Bruticus's base, he has started moving his fiends out, getting ready for a potential run by into Twig's base. Let's see whether they can manage that with the Centurions in the way. It's still a bit difficult, but those are taking shelling damage from the Sheldons. Yes, it's in the name, but it is exactly what they do. They just plink away at units out of range, and eventually they punch their way through. Very weak, but very long range. Twig pushing
enough,
out.
the ecos are fairly even. I thought Twig would have likely pulled away more with his map advantage.
T2 versus T1 mexes. Those fiends getting ready to push up the ramp. However, with a Dragon's Claw up there and the couple of Centurions, I don't think they're going to get too much done. So it's taking a while for the Dragon's Claw to pop up. The Dragon's Claw took a very long time to pop up, which I think might have been a line of sight issue caused by the high ground and the Dragon's Teeth. Interesting,
Yeah,
I haven't seen that
would
one
have been
before.
helpful.
Meanwhile, while this is happening, Twig has gotten a couple of pawns in and shredded those Sheldons. So unfortunately, Bruticus has lost most of his T2 advantage, and Twig is now going to start pushing his way through. Bruticus doing the smart thing and knowing that a lot of the army is at the back for Twig, he is going to attempt to push through with more fiends at the front. Sprinters and pawns not being the most effective. So this could be Bruticus's opportunity to win, or at least opportunity to cripple Twig. Those sprinters grouping up and taking a lot of flame damage, but it looks like they're going to be enough to clean this up along with the
force.
comm. Yep. Losing a little bit of energy generation, but nothing too bad. That is a huge metal investment. A couple of huge metal investments made by Bruticus.
Running some around and dealing with those mexes.
Yeah, very smart. He's just got them on move commands.
And he's splitting them up to basically hit every single mech that Twig is likely to have at this point.
Yep. He's seen the base is harder to crack, so he's cleaning everything up. This is actually turning into a really hard game to call a winner for. Bruticus making all of the smart decisions, but Twig doing very well with the micro. But with all the mexes going down on the map, the metal advantage is going to swing very largely into Bruticus's favor, and Twig will struggle to support.
Play, my money is now on Brute to basically continue the advantage that he's got now that Twig doesn't have anything out on the map itself. His forces have been decimated, and he's got no metal generation other than his sort of
inner mexes
at the start.
Yep.
He's going to struggle to continue his push from here. He's definitely going to need to get some construction box out and about to rebuild some of that metal generation.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have very many T1 construction bots. He's only got the 2. So it's going to be quite a risk to keep pushing out. And for the short term, Bruticus is now very far ahead on army spending with a large amount of fiends.
And despite the cost, he's going for a mammoth. If he can get those out supported by the fiends,
the mammoth will slow push all the way up the ramp. Very, very powerful. I'd actually be tempted to send my comm behind the mammoth to heal it. Twig will struggle to get enough units out to deal with that in time. And even if he does, one of the best counters is snipers, and he's struggling on the energy income for that. Minor engagement over here, taking out, it looks like a trade for a fiend for a sprinter, which is a pretty good trade. Fiends and sprinters serving a similar purpose for both armies. Fast but not overly strong units.
It looked like the fiends have the advantage there, particularly when they're
the AoE means that they're going to have the advantage when in a grouped up fight. But if the sprinters manage to engage them one-on-one, then the sprinter has the advantage. Bruticus with a Deceiver and a Augur following that Mammoth should allow for him to keep plinking away with its very powerful laser cannons. Couple of welders coming in, a good play against the fiends, very, very capable of taking out fiends, but they do not have the range to fight a mammoth. We need to see some hounds and potentially even just a single sniper to keep plinking away and taking units out one at a time. Sprinters moving around the map trying to I'm hearing a Control D out of something? No?
No.
I did hear it.
Brute's been able to see those sprinters that have moved up around that top side.
And they're very spread out, which means they're quite susceptible to a pack of fiends. We've got too many radars and smugglers. We've got too many compasses and smugglers coming out from Twig. I do like the redundancy, but when your income is this low, it will struggle. Also, with the welders consume energy to fire, which means that they will definitely struggle based on his energy economy. A Fat Boy, not a bad choice, but I genuinely think Hounds are a good play here because he doesn't have the energy for anything much else. And he knows it, building some
You can see this force coming in now.
Yep. Jumping over to player view, he knows that it's a mammoth, so Twig is doing the smart thing and getting sharpshooters for that sniping power. Bruticus scaling his economy, getting that extra energy up, and not building units currently, which I think is the right call. While you have something on the front line like this, we have a Spectre coming in, getting ready to EMP all of those units, unfortunately unable to do so. So if you self-detonate a Spectre, it EMPs everything within a reasonably large radius, and that will completely cripple Twig's ability to fight this. And without
Twig hasn't been able to see it.
Yes. Oh, he got it last moment. Bruticus walked it too close to the units, and they can see it if it is within a few steps, so very unfortunate. Now we have the welders, as I said, great at taking out those fiends if they have energy, which they didn't.
Good to see the fiends running straight on through to get the damage into the base.
Getting the snipers down, but unfortunately only one advanced solar taken, and Twig gains all of the metal out of this, though both players
Fiends
maxed out at metal, so...
again.
Yep, unfortunately, no more damage is going to be achieved from this push. And all of that metal donated to Twig, though both players essentially full on metal right now. Build power and energy are the main concerns, and Bruticus did a great job at pushing his energy income behind that push, so this really is turning into a bit of a slugfest.
To a very even fight again.
Yep.
Looking at the economies, they are
34 versus 39, 30.4 metal versus 30.9 metal income. However, Twig does have 3,300 metal in front of his base, which is going to power an entire fusion reactor. So great to see that out of Twig. And it's definitely the right call here. Bruticus having essentially no army, this is the best time to get that energy economy up and running. As soon as he has that, I think that Twig will start to push ahead with the army advantage and the metal advantage.
Yeah,
neither
player.
It's
definitely going to swing into Twig's favor, because Brute's basically back to his core mexes on the top of the hill again. Neither of them are expanding at this point. But that's largely because they've both had some sort of raiding parties who've done the sweeps, and it's very difficult to maintain mexes when there's things like fiends and sprinters running around the map to clear things out every so often.
Yep, if you notice in the center of the map, we've got a Lazarus, a hero Lazarus, keeping Twig topped off with energy while he builds that fusion. This is about to be a huge energy swing in Twig's advantage. Now, he should be able to consume a lot of that metal that is on his front line, and he should be able to go into a very strong set of units. I want to see more ability to kill fiends, because Bruticus has been showing them a lot, backed up with snipers, fat boys, and hounds, or any combination of the above.
Interesting that the fusion reactor is cloak.
I like that, to be honest. It's a bit of an extra. It's a little bit of an extra expenditure, but not a huge extra expenditure. So we're talking about the difference between. We're talking about a 400 metal difference and a 5,000 energy difference, and it means that Bruticus won't know that it's there.
And it costs 100 energy a second to maintain that cloak as well.
Yep, but while it's running like that, Bruticus will be thinking that Twig is running on a lesser economy if he manages to get scouting damage. Some fiends popping up to try and enter from the back again. 3 Centurions and a Hound, not going to be enough to clean them up, but certainly will give Twig some time to react. Grouping them up down the ramp, definitely not good. Allowed all of the fiends to get maximum damage on them at once. But we're down to 2 fiends, which is not even close to enough for a probing attack. Sniper takes out a 3rd and might take out... No, won't take out a 4th.
No. We can see Brute's
big front attack
towards his Hail Mary of the Fiend army, of it either makes it through or not much will.
And right now is about the best time, is one of the best times for that. There are only a handful of welders at the front line, so this should not be there won't be a strong defense. The sniper's very strong, but only capable of shooting once every 6 seconds or thereabouts, so they're not even going to get more than 2 shots off
They're
into this
great
army.
against
Yep.
high health units, but
And
against the
huge
swarm,
amount of fiends popping on in. We need to see a D-gun out of Twig's comm in order to survive this.
Twig looks
Or
to
a
be running.
ludicrously efficient Dragon's Claw. Huge damage, T2 lab going down. That's a problem for Twig. Very few units remaining. Those snipers still up, but again, snipers not the best at taking out fiends. This game really is going back and forth.
And Twig has done his air transition.
And
We've
without...
just seen him eat his
Yep.
T1 air lab. His T2 air lab is going to be up shortly, and it's good to see Brute going back in again, knowing that he's done enough damage that he now knows what's in there, and he knows that there's not an army or defenses standing in the way.
Yep. Twig desperately trying to get even just a couple of units out, but those pawns barely able to do anything. Bruticus running them into the defenses, but so much damage is being done right now, and Twig's metal income is being heavily harassed around the map, though he's been good with getting those builders out there one at a time, and building up those mechs, so he's keeping himself in the game, and all of the fighting is
Nothing
happening.
coming out of that air lab,
Oof,
and these
except
fiends are about
fiends
to
at
hit
the
the
back.
backside of it.
Yeah, so Twig is certainly on the ropes
And
now.
I expect that these will probably get that fusion just from collateral.
I wouldn't say collateral, but they'll get close enough to see it. There we go. Now they know it's there, and now they'll take it out, and I would say that this is the end for Twig. Very good use of those, of the limited resources he had available to him. Very good use of micro and pulling Twig in all different directions. And that air transition was just a bad call, considering what was available to him at the time. Bruticus was struggling to make it up his ramp. He was donating metal over and over again, but by trying to get fancy and trying to get that T2 air transition, the game certainly turned around in Bruticus. It swung in Bruticus' favor very strongly, and now fiends surrounding the comm. This should be GG. Quick look at the statistics on that one. We'll grab the graphs so that we can see exactly what went along. Tom, you were very strong for damage early on, but Twig out-damaged you with those large engagements. And as we see, Bruticus managed to overtake Twig towards the end. Those fiends, very high damage and used very well. Metal produced, Twig stayed ahead the entire game, and energy produced, very similar story. So he certainly had the advantage, but instead of playing it straight up, he tried to go for the snipe and was unsuccessful.
I saw something in a game the other day where someone built 2 atomic bombers, and all it takes is 2 atomic bombers to snipe a commander. And that's what I wanted to do, but I should have definitely just kept beating the welders, because those welders stop the fiends quite well.
Yep. So Bruticus, great solid play out of you. Good. One of the moves that we saw that we really liked out of you was when you had that mammoth on the front line. You took the time to build up your energy. You built yourself 6 advanced solars, and that was the perfect time to do it. You didn't have to spend on your army because you had Twig hemmed in, and it gave you the resources you need to keep pumping those fiends out and keep picking Twig apart bit by bit. How did you think the game was going at that stage?
I was hoping that Spybot was going to EMP those that army.
We were watching that, and it got so close.
Bastard.
Yep.
So yeah, I was very disappointed with that ending, because I was like, just shot down the sharpshooter with the mammoth.
Yep.
Spybot pop. Spybot got popped, but the wrong way.
Yep. No, great plays out of both of you. Bruticus loved how you just kept picking Twig apart bit by bit. You never let him play his game, and that was the perfect way to steal a victory from our piece of shit friend.
Yeah, definitely. Sloppy eco on my part, but I knew I just had to keep harassing him. I don't know if he caught it.
Aggression wins.
Yep, aggression wins.
I sent the 2 fiends out to just go and check all the mexes and just set a waypoint for each mex.
We
and
did
hope
like
they were
that.
under defended, and
Yeah.
they cleaned up quite a
At the
few
start of
messes.
that game, guys, I did notice I couldn't really hear any engagements between you two. What was happening there?
I mean,
Well, I heard
honestly,
you
it's
two
because
fighting.
you were on the offensive. They were
Yeah,
all
I-
defensive engagements.
Yeah, I heard you two fighting, and I was like, okay, you two can sit there and fight each other, and I'm going to sit back in my little hill. And definitely didn't pay off with my eco, but yeah, I thought I'll let you two fight, and then I missed out on Tom's comms reclaim by about maybe 5 or so seconds before my resbot got there, and that's when I started trying to reclaim your resbot.
All right. On that note, since we've had you here for about 35 minutes, we're going to end it there. If you enjoyed the video, if you're enjoying our FFAs, please give us a like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you want to see. And if you want to play with us, if it's an FFA, a 1v1, or if you just want to send us a replay of a particularly good game you want us to cast, hit us up on the Discord. We're always looking for new people to play the game with. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.